Okay, I want you to try a little visualization with me. It's a bit unsettling, so just stay with me for a second.
I'm with you.
Imagine a split screen, like you see in a documentary.
Yep, got it.
On the left side, there's this really high-resolution portrait of a young woman. She's in her early 20s, maybe 22, 23, and she is just the absolute picture of vitality.
Okay.
You know the type I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Glowing skin, bright eyes, that kind of restless energy that you just assume comes with being young.
The biological peak.
Yeah,
The classic before picture.
exactly. She looks like she's about to, I don't know, backpack across Europe or run a marathon just for fun.
Right. Full of life.
Now, I want you to shift your eyes to the right side of the screen. We have another photo, and it's supposed to be the same woman, but the difference is, well, it's jarring. It's actually kind of disturbing.
Okay, so what are we seeing? Describe what makes her look so different.
It's all in the details, the texture of her face. There are these really deep nasolabial folds.
The lines from the nose to the mouth.
Yeah, the ones that usually take, like, decades of gravity and smiling to carve out. And her hair is probably the first thing you'd notice. It's thinning a lot.
So you can see the scalp.
You can see her scalp right through the strands. And her skin. The source material we're looking at describes it as earth-colored.
Earth-colored. That's an interesting phrase. Lifeless.
Lifeless, dull, almost grayish, and she just looks frail. Her joints seem knobby, maybe a little swollen, like she's dealing with some kind of systemic inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
If you saw these two photos side by side with absolutely no context, you would bet your entire life savings that the photo on the right was taken 20, maybe 30 years after the first one.
It sounds like a textbook case of rapid senescence or maybe a severe autoimmune progression. Something is clearly wrong.
You would think so, but here's the twist. This is the part that just stopped me in my tracks.
Okay.
The woman in that photo on the right, the one who looks like she could be a grandmother,
Yeah.
she is only 32 years old.
32. Wow. Okay, that is medically significant. We're not talking about natural aging here.
Not at all.
We aren't even talking about bad genes or, standard environmental wear and tear. When you see accelerated aging of that magnitude, I mean, you're describing someone aging 2 decades in the span of maybe 5 or 6 years. You were looking at a total system collapse.
And that is exactly what we're unpacking today. This isn't a case of a rare genetic disorder. It's not the aftermath of some tragic accident.
It was a choice.
The transformation was voluntary, or, let's say, the cause of it was. This physical collapse is presented in our source material as the direct physiological result of a lifestyle choice that was intended to be the healthiest thing she could possibly do for herself and the planet.
And that brings us right to the heart of this deep dive, doesn't it? It's a tension that I think a lot of people feel, maybe not to this extreme, but it's definitely out there in the culture.
What's the tension?
It's the tension between this ideological desire to save the earth, right? To be ethical, to be pure, to do no harm, and the biological reality of what can happen when that ideology ends up, well, destroying your own body.
So today we're doing a deep dive into a very specific, very detailed personal account. The source text we're working from is titled, "I Tried to Save the Earth, but Destroyed My Body."
A pretty direct title.
It's a personal report, almost like a script for a video, from a woman who spent the prime of her 20s as a strict vegetarian and then a vegan, and who is now, pretty controversially, a proponent of a meat-heavy diet.
And I think it's important we clarify our mission here right at the top, because this topic can get pretty heated.
Good point.
We are analyzing a specific case study, an N of 1, as they say. We have the transcript of her story, her descriptions of her symptoms, her medical claims, and her emotional journey. Our job is to trace her path from plant-based eating to animal-based eating and understand the physiology she describes.
And we should probably drop a disclaimer here too, right?
Absolutely. We are unpacking the source's narrative. That's key. We are looking at the medical claims she makes based on her experience.
We're staying neutral.
Exactly. We're not here to say everyone must eat this or everyone must avoid that. We're here to explore a radical transformation and try to understand the biology she's describing. We're basically investigators looking into her biological story.
Okay, let's get into it then. Let's unpack this story, because it doesn't start with illness. It starts with, the best of intentions. It starts with what she calls a noble beginning.
It usually does. Very few people make these kinds of radical lifestyle changes out of malice or a desire to get sick.
Yeah.
It almost always comes from a place of wanting to be better.
So she describes her mid-20s. She watches a documentary. I mean, I think we've all been there, right?
Oh, yeah.
You watch something that pulls back the curtain on the food industry or climate change, and you just feel this pit in your stomach.
It's a very common catalyst. These documentaries are designed to provoke a strong emotional response. They're built to bypass your logical centers and hit you right in the empathy centers.
For her, the message she took away was just. It was clear and it was absolute. She internalized this idea that meat is essentially a mass of human greed. That was her phrase for it.
A massive human greed.
And on the flip side, that plant-based eating was the only way to purify the body. It wasn't just about diet for her. It was about purity.
And that word purify is so fascinating from a psychological perspective. It immediately moves the conversation from nutrition, calories, proteins, fats, into the realm of morality, even spirituality.
What's the danger there?
Well, when you view your food as a source of moral purity, it becomes very, very difficult to listen to your body if your body starts to complain. Because if you change your diet, you aren't just changing your fuel source, you're compromising your morals. You're becoming impure.
And for a while, her body didn't complain at all. She describes what we hear about a lot, the honeymoon phase.
Right, and this is a very real phenomenon. It's not imaginary.
She lost weight. She said she felt lighter. She talks about this surge of energy. So if this diet was eventually going to wreck her, why did it feel so good at the start?
Well, it's usually a combination of a couple of things. First, you have the elimination factor.
Meaning what she cut out.
Exactly. When people switch to a strict plant-based diet, especially if they're coming from a standard modern diet, what are they getting rid of? They're cutting out processed junk, fast food, greasy takeout, sugary drinks, donuts.
All the inflammatory stuff.
Right. They usually start eating more whole foods by default. And that alone will immediately lower systemic inflammation. You drop a lot of water weight, you feel less sluggish. That lightness she felt is a real physiological response to just dropping the junk.
So the initial benefit came more from what she stopped eating, not necessarily what she started eating.
Precisely. But there's also a massive psychological component to that initial high. And to her credit, the source material is very honest about this part.
Okay.
She admits that part of that energy surge was this feeling of superiority.
Yeah, she actually describes asking her friends, and this is a direct quote, "Do you still eat corpses?" That's pretty intense.
It is, but it reveals the mechanism perfectly. We see this in behavioral psychology all the time. If you feel you're part of a select group that has seen the truth, that moral reinforcement releases dopamine. It feels good to be right. It feels good to be the disciplined one.
A kind of psychological reward.
A huge one. That moral superiority reinforcement, as you could call it, can mask physical warning signs for a very long time. You can ignore the fatigue because you feel so righteous. You can interpret feeling lightheaded as some kind of spiritual lightness.
But here's where it gets really interesting and honestly a bit scary. We need to look at what she was actually eating, because I think there's this common misconception that vegan automatically means like bowls of kale and quinoa and perfectly balanced amino acids.
And that is often the fatal flaw in the plan. The, let's call it Instagram vegan diet, requires a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of careful planning, and usually a lot of supplementation.
So what did her real day-to-day diet look like?
Well, she says that when she removed the meat, she felt this emptiness, a physical hunger that just wouldn't go away. So to fill that void, she turned to bread, to a rice cake, specifically karatuk, which is this very dense, chewy Korean rice cake. She ate a lot of fruit and sweet potatoes.
Ah, okay. I see the trajectory now.
You see it, right?
Yeah. What's your immediate reaction to that list of foods?
Well, she fell right into the carbohydrate trap. This is a classic issue. She believed that because the food was plant-based, it was inherently benign. The thinking is, it's a sweet potato, comes from the earth, it must be fine. But physiologically, if you remove protein and animal fat, which are by far the most satiating macronutrients, and you replace them almost exclusively with starch and sugar, you are creating a metabolic disaster.
She describes it so vividly. She says she was essentially pickling her body in sugar and carbohydrates, all while believing she was eating clean.
That is such an evocative image, pickling. And, scientifically, it's not that far off. If she's eating bread, rice cakes, and fruit all day, her insulin levels are likely chronically elevated.
There's constant spikes.
Constant spikes. But the pickling part probably refers to glycation.
Glycation.
Yeah.
Can you break that down for us?
Sure. Think of what happens when you caramelize an onion. You add sugar and heat, and it turns brown, and it gets kind of stiff and sticky.
Right.
Glycation is basically that process happening inside your body, but much slower. Excess sugar molecules in your blood start to bind to proteins and fats, and they create these things we call advanced glycation end products.
End products. Okay.
The acronym for them is appropriately AGEs, because that's exactly what they do. They age you. These AGEs gunk up your cells. They make your collagen, the stuff that keeps your skin firm, stiff, and brittle. They damage blood vessels.
So she thought she was purifying herself.
But metabolically, she was aging herself from the inside out by just flooding her system with glucose.
She's running on sugar, she's spiking her insulin, and she's not getting nearly enough protein, but in her mind, she's a warrior protecting the earth.
Exactly. She thought she was saving the planet, but biologically, she was turning herself into a malnutrition patient. She was getting calories, sure, plenty of energy from all those carbs, but she was starving herself of the actual structural building blocks that are required to maintain a human body.
And that starvation,
Yep.
it didn't take very long to show up.
Yeah.
And this brings us to the next part of our deep dive, the collapse. And when the collapse came, it didn't just whisper. The source says the body screamed.
And what was the first scream? What was the first system to officially go offline?
Her reproductive system.
Ah,
The source states that in her second year of being vegan, her menstruation stopped completely. Amenorrhea.
2 years in. Okay, that's a significant timeline.
Yeah, and it didn't just, miss a month or get irregular. It stopped. Gone. And here's the thing that really struck me. Her initial reaction was relief. She thought it was convenient. No more cramps, no more buying tampons, no more mess.
That is, wow. That's a tragic misinterpretation, but it's a very common one in our culture. We often view menstruation as this hassle, a monthly inconvenience to be managed.
Right.
But biologically, a vital sign is a monthly report card from your endocrine system that basically says, hey, we are healthy enough and we have enough resources to reproduce. When that shuts down, it's not a convenience. It's the body activating emergency protocols.
Emergency protocols? What do you mean? Like a low power mode?
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
The body is incredibly smart. It prioritizes survival above everything else, especially reproduction. If it senses that there aren't enough resources, and specifically not enough fats and proteins to sustain the host, the very first thing it shuts down is the reproductive system.
Why that first?
Because it's too expensive energetically to maintain a cycle or build a uterine lining if you are, for all intents and purposes, starving. The body basically says, we can't support a baby right now. We can barely support ourselves. Shut down the ovaries. Full stop.
And she did eventually go to a doctor about it. And the diagnosis she got was just brutal. The doctor looked at her charts, at her blood work, and asked if she had anorexia. And he told her that her female hormone levels were comparable to those of a grandmother.
Think about the implications of that for a second. She's in her late 20s. She should be at her absolute peak fertility. Instead, she's chemically menopausal.
Right.
And this isn't just about not having a period or not being able to have a baby. Hormones like estrogen and progesterone aren't just for making babies. Estrogen protects your bones. It protects your brain. It keeps your skin elastic. It protects your cardiovascular system.
So when those crash...
When those crash to grandmother levels at age 26 or 27, you aren't just infertile. You're actively degenerating.
Which perfectly explains the cascade of symptoms that came next. It wasn't just the uterus. It was a total domino effect. She lists them out, and it just reads like a medical textbook of misery.
What came next? After the reproductive system.
Next was the thyroid.
Hypothyroidism. Makes sense.
She couldn't tolerate cold at all. She said she was freezing all the time, even in the middle of summer wearing sweaters.
The thyroid is the furnace of the body. It's the thermostat. It regulates your metabolism and your heat generation. But here's the catch. Thyroid hormone production is heavily dependent on specific nutrients. You need things like selenium, iodine, zinc, and the amino acid tyrosine.
And are those particularly hard to get on a plant-based diet?
They can be. Zinc, for example, is incredibly abundant and bioavailable in red meat. In plants, it's often bound up by these things called phytates, which are anti-nutrients that actively block its absorption.
So even if the food label says it has zinc.
She might not have been absorbing it. And if the furnace runs out of fuel, what does the body do? It turns down the thermostat to save energy. That's why she was freezing. Her metabolism had slowed to a crawl.
Then came the structural issues, and this is where that old woman visual really starts to make sense. She developed symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis in her late 20s.
Joint pain.
Excruciating pain. She talks about pain in her knees just from climbing a single set of stairs.
Joint pain in a 20-something with no history of a specific injury is a massive, massive red flag. Joints are made of connective tissue collagen, cartilage. And these tissues require very specific amino acids like glycine and proline to constantly repair themselves.
Where do you find those?
They're most abundant and in the right ratios in animal connective tissue. Think skin, bone broth, gelatin. Muscle meat has them too, of course.
Yeah.
If you stop eating these bricks, your body simply can't repair the daily wear and tear on your joints. Her knees were hurting because they were literally breaking down faster than she could rebuild them.
And then maybe the scariest part for a lot of people, unexplained growths. She started feeling lumps in her breast. Plural. Lumps.
And this connects right back to the hormonal imbalance we were talking about. When your endocrine system is in total chaos, you've got chronic insulin spikes from the rice cakes, you've got crashed sex hormones, you've got thyroid dysfunction. All the signaling mechanisms in the body just go haywire.
So it's all connected.
It's all connected. Now, we can't say for sure exactly what those lumps were based on the text. Maybe they were cysts, maybe fibroadenomas. But it indicates a system that is failing to properly regulate cell growth and tissue health. It's a sign of profound dysfunction.
So we have this total internal collapse happening, but we have to go back to that photo because the internal damage, eventually it makes its way to the surface.
Right.
She talks about the loss of femininity and this accelerated aging.
And this is where we come back to collagen again, but this time for the vanity metrics.
She attributes her skin collapse and her hair loss specifically to a lack of dietary fat and protein. She says her hair was falling out in clumps in the shower.
Hair and skin are what the body considers non-essential tissues.
A luxury.
Exactly. A luxury. If your body is rationing protein because you aren't eating enough of it, or because the quality of the protein you're eating is poor, it's not going to send those precious amino acids to your hair follicles. It's going to send them to your heart, your liver, your brain to keep you alive.
It's triage. It's biological triage. Hair is luxury cargo. Smooth, elastic skin is luxury cargo. And if you're on a sinking ship, you throw the luxury cargo overboard first to save the ship.
There's this one anecdote she shares that is just, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
She went to a class reunion. She's 30 years old at this point. And her friends, people she grew up with who knew her face inside and out, they didn't recognize her.
Wow.
They came up to her and asked if she was sick.
That is the social mirror. That's devastating. We can deceive ourselves when we look in our own bathroom mirror every day because the changes are so gradual, we adjust our baseline.
Right, you get used to it.
But when someone who hasn't seen you in 5 years looks at you with pity in their eyes, that shatters the illusion completely. That's the moment you realize, oh no, this isn't normal. Something is terribly wrong.
And she hit rock bottom. She describes eating a tofu salad alone at night, just crying, and realizing that her life felt like hell. She was doing everything right, according to her ideology, but she was miserable and literally falling apart. That cognitive dissonance has to be excruciatingly painful. I am saving the earth, so why is the earth letting me die? I mean, that is a profound existential crisis.
And that question, that desperation, leads us directly into Section 3, the paradigm shift. She calls it the forbidden apple.
Yep.
Or in her case, it was the forbidden egg.
Right. So how did she get from crying over a tofu salad to eating an egg? What was the bridge?
It starts with the algorithm. Of all things, we all know how YouTube works, right? You watch one health video and eventually the algorithm serves you the exact opposite.
To see if you'll click.
Exactly. She started getting videos recommended to her for low-carb, high-fat diets and even carnivore diets.
Which must have been absolutely shocking for her.
Yeah.
That's like a devout teetotaler suddenly getting ads for a whiskey distillery.
Completely. The titles of these videos were claiming things like, fat is not the culprit. Animal protein saves people.
Imagine the mental resistance she must have felt in that moment. This goes against everything she had built her identity on for the last 5 or 6 years. She viewed meat as a mass of greed. And now these people are online saying it's medicine.
It's a huge shift.
That requires a massive ego death to even consider clicking on that video.
She said she viewed it with extreme skepticism. But she was desperate. And when you are in that much pain, when you're losing your hair and your friends don't recognize you, desperation can override ideology. She decided to try it.
The survival instinct kicks in. The biological drive to live is, at the end of the day, stronger than any political philosophy or dietary dogma.
So she describes this pivotal scene. She decides she's going to eat an animal product for the first time in years. And she goes to the store and buys eggs and butter. She fries an egg in butter.
A classic combination, the most bioavailable protein source on the planet. Cooked in pure, stable animal fat.
She puts the yolk in her mouth. And the way she describes this sensation, she says it felt like fireworks exploding in the brain.
Let's just stop there for a second. That description is absolutely vital. Fireworks. This isn't just about something tasting good because it's salty or fatty after years of bland food. This is a neurological response.
What's happening in the brain to cause that? Why fireworks?
Her brain is receiving nutrients it has been starving for. The yolk is packed with choline, cholesterol, vitamin B12, highly bioavailable arachidonic acid. The brain itself is about 60% fat. If she had been depriving her brain of these critical substrates for years, that firework sensation is a reward system lighting up like a Christmas tree.
So it's a signal.
It's the brain screaming, yes, this, more of this, we need this to function. It's comparable to a person who's been lost in the desert for days finally drinking water. It's not just relief. It's a profound biological signal that says, correct. You have found what you were missing.
She interpreted it exactly that way. She says she felt her body scream, "Thank you for saving me." It wasn't guilt. It was pure gratitude.
And that is such a profound moment. The shift from eating this as a sin to eating this as salvation, that's an immediate, powerful feedback loop from her biology, completely overriding years of psychological conditioning.
So she crossed the line. She ate the egg. And that one egg opened the floodgates. This brings us to section 4, the resurrection. She actually calls this part of her journey meat as medicine.
So what did the new protocol look like? Did she ease into it slowly?
No, it was a complete 180, a total reversal. She shifted her diet to meat, eggs, butter, and bone broth. She says she reduced vegetables significantly and made meat the absolute staple of her diet.
So she went from a plant-exclusive diet to what you'd call an animal-dominant or animal-based diet. A total inversion of her previous life.
And the timeline she gives it's honestly surprising. She says she observed significant, noticeable changes within just 6 months.
Biology is remarkably resilient. If you give it the raw materials it has been crying out for, repair can happen surprisingly fast, especially in a younger person. The body wants to heal. It just needs the tools to do the job.
So let's look at the physiological before and after here. The very first thing to come back online, her reproductive system.
That makes perfect sense. As soon as the energy-sensing mechanisms in the brain, like the hypothalamus, realize, okay, we have abundant fat coming in, we have abundant protein, it lifts the embargo on the ovaries. The emergency is over.
Her menstruation returned after being gone for 3 years. She claims it was the animal fat that directly fueled the production of her sex hormones.
And medically, that is an entirely sound theory. Steroid hormones, that's estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, they're all built from a cholesterol backbone. If you are on a very low-fat, plant-based diet and your body isn't synthesizing enough of its own cholesterol or you aren't ingesting it, you are literally throttling your hormone production at the source.
So she just provided the raw materials.
She provided the raw materials to restart the factory. It's that simple.
Then there were the growths, the lumps. She claims that after testing, the lumps in her breast and her thyroid issues disappeared.
Now, that is a strong claim. But if we look at it through the lens of inflammation and autoimmunity, if her previous diet was causing systemic inflammation, maybe from plant toxins like lectins or oxalates, or just from the high insulin load from the bread and rice cakes, then removing those triggers and deeply nourishing the body could absolutely allow the immune system to regulate itself again.
And the thyroid specifically.
The thyroid specifically thrives on the selenium and zinc found so abundantly in red meat. It's plausible that she corrected a severe nutrient deficiency that was driving the dysfunction.
And then the visual stuff. The stuff her friends at the reunion noticed. She says her hair became thick and shiny again. Her skin elasticity returned.
The return of collagen synthesis.
Exactly. And she says her friends literally asked her if she had gotten Botox.
I love that detail. It really highlights the difference between covering up the signs of aging and actually reversing the underlying damage from the inside out.
And her answer to them, "I ate beef."
It's a great line, but it's also just. It's just chemistry. Beef contains the full, complete amino acid profile needed to build human tissue. The glycine, the proline, these are essential for collagen synthesis. You can't build a structure without bricks. She finally gave her body the bricks it needed, and let's not forget about iron.
Right, the earth-colored skin, the color returned to her face.
Heme iron, which is the type of iron found in red meat, is absorbed so much more efficiently than the non-heme iron from plants. If she was anemic, which would perfectly explain the earth-colored, pasty skin, then eating steak is like getting an intravenous infusion of energy compared to eating spinach. It oxygenates your blood. And that brings the healthy pink color back to your cheeks.
And finally, her mental state. The depression lifted. The lethargy vanished. She talks about the simple joy of just waking up in the morning and feeling good.
And that connects right back to the brain health we touched on with the egg yolk. Nutrients like B12, iron, zinc, and omega-3 fatty acids like DHA are absolutely critical for neurotransmitter function. If your brain is inflamed and malnourished, depression is a very common and very logical side effect. She fixed the nutrition and she fixed the mood.
It's just an incredible turnaround story, and it led her to a completely new philosophy on life, which brings us to our last section, the philosophy of survival.
This is where she steps back from her personal story and starts to look at the big picture.
She makes a strong evolutionary argument. She argues that the human body has evolved over millions of years to not just tolerate, but to require meat and fat to thrive.
It's what's known as the discordance hypothesis. The idea that our ancient genes expect a certain environment, which includes a certain diet, and when we deviate too far from that evolutionary blueprint, like by removing all animal products, we get sick. She is aligning herself with the idea that we are biologically apex predators, or at the very least, facultative carnivores.
And this leads to her complete rejection of what she calls ideology over biology. She argues that ignoring your body's screams for help for the sake of a belief system, even a good belief system like saving the earth, is a profound form of self-neglect.
And it raises a really difficult ethical question, doesn't it? If saving the planet requires you to destroy your own health, is that a sustainable ethic? Can you really be a guardian of the earth if you are too weak and sick to climb a flight of stairs?
Her new motto captures this perfectly, she says. Protecting the earth is important, but shouldn't we protect ourselves first?
It's the oxygen mask principle from the airplane safety briefing. Put your own mask on before you try to assist others. You can't help anyone if you're passed out in the aisle.
Her conclusion is that true natural protection, true stewardship, has to start with keeping one's own body alive and healthy, and she has this final call to action for anyone listening to her story.
What's the message?
She says, animal protein is not a sin, it is medicine that saves you. And she advises people to eat meat without guilt so they can bloom again.
Bloom. That's a beautiful word for it. It implies returning to a natural state of flourishing. Not just surviving, but thriving.
So let's wrap this up. We've tracked this incredible arc from a 32-year-old woman who looked and felt like a grandmother, surviving on tofu and sweet potatoes, to a revitalized, healthy woman fueled by steak and butter.
It's just a stark reminder, isn't it? We often think of diet as something minor, a little weight loss here, a small cholesterol tweak there. But this story reminds us that dietary choices have immediate and profound physical consequences. They can mimic rapid aging, or they can trigger rejuvenation. Food is powerful. It is the code that programs your biology every single day.
It really challenges the dominant narrative we hear so often today.
It absolutely does. And I want to leave the listener with a final provocative thought here, something to chew on, so to speak.
Okay.
We so often view diet through the lens of weight loss. Will this make me skinny?
Yeah.
Or through the lens of ethics. Is this good for the planet?
Right. Those are the two main drivers for most people's choices.
But what if? What if we viewed food strictly as fuel for hormonal synthesis? Just for a minute. If you stripped away all the politics and all the vanity and you just looked at your body as a biological machine,
Okay.
are you giving that machine the raw materials it actually needs to build its own structure, to build your hormones, your neurotransmitters, your skin, your hair, or are you asking it to build a house without bricks?
That is a powerful image. The house without bricks.
Because if you ask a builder to build a house with no bricks, eventually the roof is going to cave in. The body will try its best. It will scavenge. It will take calcium from your bones. It will take protein from your muscles and your skin. It will literally cannibalize itself to keep the heart beating. But eventually, inevitably, it collapses.
Well, that is certainly something to think about the next time any of us sit down to a meal. Are we feeding the machine or are we just filling the tank?
Exactly.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. As always, the most important thing you can do is listen, not just to us, but to your own body. It's usually telling you exactly what it needs.
If you're willing to listen.
Until next time.